Beloved, this day did not begin when your eyes opened. It began when God decided purpose would meet you this morning. Before schedules, before responsibilities, before voices begin to pull at your attention, heaven is calling you into alignment. This is not an ordinary Friday. This is a day already charged with divine intention, already saturated with grace, already positioned for victory if you will take your rightful place in prayer. When you start your day with God, you don't chase outcomes, you command alignment, you establish authority, and you set the atmosphere for everything that follows. Prayer is where strength is activated and peace takes command. It is where confusion bows, fear loses its voice, and clarity rises in your spirit. As you enter this moment, God is ready to speak direction into your decisions, wisdom into your conversations, and calm into your mind. What tries to overwhelm you today will not overpower you because you are beginning from a place of surrender and trust. This prayer is your divine advantage. It positions you ahead of pressure and anchors you in God's presence before the day demands anything from you. So settle your heart right now. Release what you carried from yesterday. Open your spirit to receive fresh grace for today. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you are watching from. This is your moment to start your day covered, empowered, and led by the Spirit of God. Beloved, hear me by the Spirit of God. Before this day asks anything of you, God is asking for your heart. Surrendering this day completely to Him is not a ritual. It is a declaration of trust. It is the decision to place every hour, every thought, every responsibility, every expectation into the hands of the one who already sees the end from the beginning. When you surrender the day before it unfolds, you remove yourself from the burden of control and place your life under divine authority. This is how peace is established before pressure appears. This is how clarity is secured before confusion tries to rise. Surrender begins in the mind. The mind is often the first battlefield of the day. Thoughts rush in about what must be done, what might go wrong, what was left unfinished, what others expect from you. But when you surrender the day, you invite God to quiet that noise. You give Him permission to govern your thinking. You allow Him to reorder priorities, silence unnecessary worries, and replace anxious thoughts with truth. A surrendered mind is not empty. It is aligned. It is focused. It is steady. God does not overwhelm a surrendered mind. He brings order to it. He teaches you what deserves your attention and what must be released. Surrendering the day also means surrendering your schedule. Schedules are useful, but they must remain flexible in the hands of God. When you surrender your schedule, you are telling God that your time belongs to Him. You are acknowledging that interruptions may be instructions and delays may be protection. You are releasing the need to control every outcome and trusting God to guide your movement. This surrender does not make you passive. It makes you responsive. You become sensitive to divine timing. You begin to recognize when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to engage and when to withdraw. Surrendering the day invites God into your decisions. Every decision carries weight, whether large or small, from how you respond in conversations to how you manage responsibilities. Decisions shape the atmosphere of your day. When you surrender your decisions, you stop relying solely on logic and begin leaning on wisdom. God's wisdom is not rushed. It is calm, precise, and rooted in truth. Surrender allows wisdom to lead instead of emotion. You begin to make choices from peace rather than pressure. You become less reactive and more intentional. Decisions made in surrender carry peace, even when they require courage. Surrendering the day also means surrendering your emotions. Emotions are real, but they are not rulers. Without surrender, emotions can dominate responses and distort perception. But when emotions are surrendered to God, they come under alignment. Fear loses its grip. Anger softens. Anxiety quiets. Joy becomes deeper. Surrender does not suppress emotion. It submits emotion to truth. God meets you where you are emotionally and leads you to where you need to be spiritually. Emotional surrender brings stability. It allows you to feel without being controlled. When you surrender the day, you also surrender expectations. Expectations often create disappointment when they are unmet, but when expectations are surrendered, trust replaces tension. You allow God to exceed what you imagined or redirect what you misunderstood. Surrender teaches you that God's plan is not limited by your expectations. He sees possibilities you cannot see. He understands timing you cannot measure. By surrendering expectations, you free yourself from frustration and open yourself to divine surprise. Surrender also invites God into your work. Whatever your hands touch today becomes sacred when surrendered. Work becomes worship when it is done with awareness of God's presence. You stop striving for validation and start serving with excellence. You do not work to prove your worth. You work from your identity. Surrendered work carries grace. It produces fruit without exhaustion. It allows you to remain diligent without becoming overwhelmed. God honors surrendered effort because it is aligned with humility. Surrendering the day protects you from unnecessary stress. Stress often comes from carrying responsibility that does not belong to you. When you surrender, you release what is beyond your control. You stop trying to manage people, outcomes, and situations that only God can handle. This release creates space for peace. Peace is not the absence of responsibility. It is the presence of trust. When God carries the weight, your soul rests, even while your hands are active. Surrendering the day also sharpens your spiritual sensitivity. When your heart is yielded, your spirit becomes attentive. You begin to notice divine nudges. You sense when something is not aligned. You recognize moments of favor. You become aware of God's guidance in ordinary situations. Surrender removes resistance. God can guide a willing heart easily. The more surrendered you are, the clearer his leading becomes. Sensitivity grows where surrender lives. Surrender is also protection. When you surrender your day, you place yourself under divine covering. God guards what you entrust to him. He intervenes where you cannot. He shields you from unseen dangers. He redirects you from paths that would harm you. Protection is not always dramatic. It is often quiet, a delayed moment, a canceled plan, a changed conversation. Surrender allows God to protect you without explanation. Surrendering the day realigns your identity. You remember that you are not defined by productivity, performance, or approval. You are defined by relationship. When the day is surrendered, your worth is no longer tied to outcomes. You remain secure whether the day is successful or challenging. Identity anchored in God is unshakable. Surrender reinforces that identity every morning. Surrender also cultivates gratitude. When you surrender, you become more aware of God's involvement. You notice his help. You recognize his grace. You appreciate his presence. Gratitude grows when control diminishes. You begin to thank God not only for outcomes, but for guidance, protection, and peace along the way. Gratitude softens the heart and opens it to joy. Surrendering the day prepares you to handle challenges with grace. Challenges will come, but surrender changes how you face them. Instead of reacting with panic, you respond with prayer. Instead of frustration, you choose patience. Instead of fear, you lean into trust. Surrender does not remove challenges, it transforms your response to them. You walk through difficulty without losing peace because your confidence is anchored in God. Surrender also frees you from comparison. When your day is surrendered, you are not distracted by how others are doing. You are focused on obedience. You trust that God's plan for you is unique. You stop measuring your progress against someone else's timeline. Comparison loses its power when surrender defines your posture. Surrendering the day invites rest into your soul. Rest is not inactivity. It is assurance. It is the calm that comes from knowing God is in control. Even while working, your spirit rests. You move with intention rather than urgency. You breathe deeply. You remain present. Rest becomes your foundation, not your reward. Surrender is not something you do once. It is something you return to throughout the day. When pressure rises, you surrender again. When confusion appears, you surrender again. When plans change, you surrender again. Each surrender restores peace. Each surrender realigns your heart. Each surrender strengthens trust. Over time, surrender becomes instinctive. You respond to life by yielding instead of striving. Beloved, surrendering this day completely to God is the greatest gift you can give your soul. It is how you begin strong. It is how you remain steady. It is how you finish well. When the day is surrendered, God is invited into every moment. Your steps are guided. Your mind is guarded. Your heart is anchored. You are not walking alone. You are walking led, covered, and aligned under the care of a faithful God. Beloved, hear me by the Spirit of God. When you establish spiritual authority through prayer at the start of the day, you are not making a request. You are taking your rightful position. Authority is not noise. Authority is alignment. Authority is knowing who you are, who you belong to, and what heaven has already authorized over your life. Prayer at the beginning of the day is how you set order before opposition appears, how you declare truth before lies attempt to speak, how you occupy spiritual ground before pressure tries to claim it. When you pray first, you are not reacting to the day, you are governing it. Spiritual authority begins with awareness. Many live beneath pressure because they are unaware of the authority available to them. Authority is not earned through effort. It is activated through alignment. When you come into prayer, you align yourself with heaven's rule. You are not asking permission to stand. You are standing because God already granted access. Prayer is not begging. Prayer is positioning. It places your spirit in agreement with God's will and brings your environment under divine order. When prayer comes first, confusion cannot dominate. When prayer comes first, fear loses its voice. When prayer comes first, chaos does not get the final word. Establishing authority through prayer means declaring God's rule over your mind. The mind is often where battles begin. Thoughts attempt to rush in, anxiety, doubt, distraction, pressure. But when you pray, you establish governance over your thinking. You submit your thoughts to truth. You refuse to let the day dictate your mindset. Prayer trains your mind to listen before reacting. Authority over the mind brings clarity, focus, and calm. You begin the day mentally anchored instead of mentally scattered. This mental authority protects your peace as the day unfolds. Prayer also establishes authority over your emotions. Emotions are powerful, but they were never meant to lead. Without prayer, emotions often dictate responses. With prayer, emotions come under alignment. Prayer does not remove emotion, it places it under spiritual order. Fear does not dominate, anger does not control, stress does not rule. Joy becomes deeper because it is grounded in truth. Authority over emotions allows you to respond wisely instead of reacting impulsively. It gives you emotional stability that does not depend on circumstances. Establishing authority through prayer also means declaring God's will over your day. Words carry power. What you declare shapes atmosphere. When you pray, you are not just speaking to God. You are speaking into the environment. You are announcing alignment. You are declaring peace, wisdom, protection, and favor before challenges appear. The spiritual realm responds to order. When God's will is declared, resistance loses strength. Prayer sets spiritual boundaries around your day. It defines what is permitted and what is not. Prayer establishes authority over time. Time often feels like an enemy. Too little, too fast, too pressured, but prayer redeems time. When you pray, you invite God into your schedule. You allow him to order your moments. He shows you what deserves attention and what does not. Authority over time removes urgency and replaces it with intention. You move through the day without feeling rushed because you trust God to multiply efficiency and guard priorities. Time becomes a servant, not a tyrant. Establishing spiritual authority through prayer also covers your relationships. Conversations carry spiritual weight. Words can heal or wound. Prayer prepares your spirit before interaction. It sharpens discernment. It teaches you when to speak and when to listen. It protects you from unnecessary conflict. When prayer comes first, your responses are guided by wisdom instead of emotion. Authority in relationships allows you to maintain peace without losing truth. You are firm without being harsh. You are gentle without being weak. Prayer also establishes authority over temptation. Temptation often comes quietly, disguised as convenience or compromise, but prayer heightens awareness. It strengthens resolve. It reminds you of who you are before temptation tries to redefine you. Authority in prayer empowers self-control. It aligns desire with purpose. It allows you to walk past distractions without being pulled into them. Prayer fortifies the spirit so temptation loses its appeal. Establishing authority through prayer does not mean the day will be free of challenges. It means challenges will not control you. Authority is not avoidance. It is dominion. When difficulties arise, you remain anchored. You do not panic. You do not spiral. You return to prayer. Prayer is your command center. You reestablish authority whenever needed. Each time you pray, you realign with heaven's order. Prayer also establishes authority over fear of outcomes. Many fear the unknown, what might happen, how things will turn out. Prayer anchors you in trust. It reminds you that outcomes belong to God. Authority in prayer frees you from the burden of prediction. You stop worrying about results and focus on obedience. Peace flows when you trust God with outcomes. Authority replaces anxiety with assurance. Establishing authority through prayer builds spiritual confidence. Confidence is not arrogance. It is certainty in God's presence. Prayer reminds you that you are not walking alone. It strengthens your awareness of God's nearness. Confidence grows when you remember that heaven supports you. This confidence changes posture. You walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. Authority becomes visible through calm assurance. Prayer also aligns your will with God's will. Authority is not about imposing your desires. It is about agreeing with heaven. When you pray, your will softens. You become open to God's direction. You release stubbornness. You release insistence on your own way. Authority flows from obedience. The more aligned your will is with God's will, the more authority you walk in. Authority is not force. It is harmony with God's purpose. Establishing authority through prayer also sharpens your spiritual hearing. When you pray, you are not only speaking, you are listening. Listening is where authority is refined. God speaks direction, warning, confirmation, and encouragement. Authority increases as obedience follows listening. The more you listen and respond, the more sensitive your spirit becomes. Guidance becomes clearer. Discernment deepens. Prayer trains your ear to recognize God's voice amid noise. Prayer establishes authority over discouragement. Discouragement often comes from fatigue, delay, or unmet expectations. Prayer lifts perspective. It reminds you of God's faithfulness. It renews strength. Authority over discouragement allows you to continue with hope. You are not driven by emotion. You are sustained by faith. Prayer restores joy quietly, steadily, deeply. Establishing authority through prayer also guards your identity. Identity confusion weakens authority. Prayer recenters you. It reminds you who you are in God. You are not defined by performance, approval, or comparison. You are defined by relationship. Authority flows from identity. When identity is secure, authority is stable. Prayer reinforces this security daily. Prayer establishes authority over distractions. Distraction scatters energy. Prayer focuses it. When you pray, you align attention. You become present. You engage fully in what matters. Authority over distraction allows you to complete assignments with excellence and peace. You are not pulled in every direction. You are anchored. Establishing spiritual authority through prayer also creates consistency. Authority is not seasonal. It is sustained through daily alignment. Prayer at the start of the day sets the tone for consistency. Faith becomes your posture, not just your practice. Authority becomes how you live, not just how you speak. Prayer also establishes authority over spiritual atmosphere. Every environment carries atmosphere. Prayer shifts atmosphere. When you pray, you invite heaven's influence. Peace enters rooms. Clarity enters conversations. Wisdom enters decisions. Authority changes environments without effort. You carry God's presence with you. Wherever you go, alignment follows. Establishing authority through prayer requires humility. Humility recognizes dependence on God. Authority without humility becomes control. Authority with humility becomes influence. Prayer keeps authority pure. It reminds you that power comes from God, not from self. This humility protects your heart and sustains authority. Prayer establishes authority over your path. Paths represent direction. Without prayer, paths may be chosen by convenience or pressure. With prayer, paths are chosen by purpose. Authority allows God to order your steps. You walk where grace is present. You avoid paths that lead to unnecessary struggle. Prayer is how God directs movement. Establishing authority through prayer also strengthens endurance. Endurance is the ability to remain steady over time. Prayer renews strength daily. Authority over weariness allows you to continue without burning out. You draw from divine supply rather than personal reserves. Prayer sustains you. Prayer establishes authority over doubt. Doubt questions God's faithfulness. Prayer restores trust. Authority over doubt allows faith to rise. You remember what God has done. You stand on promise. Doubt loses influence when prayer strengthens belief. Beloved, when you establish spiritual authority through prayer at the start of the day, you are aligning with heaven's order before the world demands your attention. You are standing in truth before lies attempt to speak. You are anchored in peace before pressure arrives. Prayer is not preparation. It is authority in action. Through prayer, you govern the day with faith, clarity, and divine confidence. Beloved, hear me by the Spirit of God. Wisdom is not something you reach for after confusion has already settled. Wisdom is something you invite before decisions are demanded. When you invite God's wisdom to guide every decision and conversation, you are choosing to live led rather than driven, anchored rather than reactive. Wisdom is the quiet authority of heaven, influencing your thoughts, your words, and your timing. It is God's intelligence shaping human moments so that outcomes align with purpose. Wisdom does not rush. Wisdom does not panic. Wisdom discerns what is necessary, what is premature, and what is not assigned to you at all. Every decision you make today carries consequence, whether seen immediately or revealed over time. Some decisions shape direction, others shape relationships, and many shape the condition of your soul. When wisdom is absent, decisions are often fueled by urgency, emotion, or fear. But when wisdom is invited, decisions are governed by peace. Peace is the confirming signal of wisdom. It does not mean the decision is easy. It means it is aligned. Wisdom allows you to choose rightly, even when emotions pull you elsewhere. It gives you the courage to wait when waiting protects you, and the clarity to move when movement is required. Inviting God's wisdom begins with humility. Wisdom flows where humility lives. Humility acknowledges that God sees what you cannot see and understands what you cannot fully comprehend. Pride insists on control. Humility welcomes counsel. When you humble your heart before God, you create space for wisdom to enter. You stop demanding answers and start receiving direction. Wisdom is not impressed by urgency. It responds to surrender. The heart that says, Lord, lead me, will hear more clearly than the heart that says, Lord, support my plan. Wisdom also governs conversations. Words carry power. Conversations can heal or wound, build or dismantle, align or divide. When you invite God's wisdom into your conversations, you begin to speak with intention rather than impulse. You learn when silence is strength and when speech is necessary. Wisdom teaches you how to speak truth with grace, how to correct without condemning, and how to listen without defending. Many conflicts escalate not because truth was absent, but because wisdom was ignored. Wisdom chooses the right words at the right time, in the right tone. There are conversations today that require discernment. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every opinion needs expression. Not every response needs immediacy. Wisdom slows the tongue and sharpens understanding. It gives you the ability to hear what is being said beneath the words. It helps you recognize when a conversation is about facts and when it is about emotions. Wisdom allows you to respond to the real issue, not just the surface statement. This kind of listening is a gift. It preserves peace and deepens connection. Inviting God's wisdom also protects you from emotional decisions. Emotions are real, but they are not reliable guides. They fluctuate with circumstances. Wisdom anchors you in truth when emotions attempt to lead. When anger rises, wisdom tempers it. When fear speaks, wisdom quiets it. When excitement rushes, wisdom evaluates it. Wisdom does not dismiss emotion. It places emotion under authority. This balance brings maturity. You feel fully, but you choose wise. Wisdom also influences timing. Timing is often more important than intention. You can have the right desire at the wrong time and create unnecessary struggle. Wisdom teaches patience. It teaches restraint. It helps you recognize when God is preparing the environment before releasing the opportunity. Some doors look open, but wisdom reveals whether they're assigned. Some paths look appealing, but wisdom reveals their cost. Timing guided by wisdom saves you from regret. Inviting God's wisdom into decisions means allowing Him to interrupt your assumptions. Assumptions are often formed by past experiences, fears, or expectations. Wisdom challenges assumptions gently. It invites you to see differently. It opens perspective. It helps you recognize that what worked before may not be what God is doing now. Wisdom is flexible. It adapts to new seasons. It does not cling to old methods when God is releasing new instructions. Wisdom also brings clarity in complexity. Some decisions are layered. They involve multiple factors, people, and consequences. Wisdom does not oversimplify. It brings understanding piece by piece. It helps you see connections you might otherwise miss. It allows you to discern long-term impact rather than only immediate relief. Wisdom looks beyond today and considers tomorrow. It asks, will this align with who I am becoming? Rather than, will this solve my discomfort now? Inviting God's wisdom also requires patience and listening. Wisdom often speaks softly. It is not forceful. It does not compete with noise. You must quiet your inner world to hear it. This means slowing down your thoughts, releasing mental clutter, and creating space for stillness. In stillness, wisdom rises. The Spirit guides gently, a sense of peace, a pause, a check in your spirit. These are often wisdom's language. When you learn to recognize these signals, decision-making becomes less stressful and more intuitive. Wisdom guards your relationships. It teaches you how to honor boundaries. It shows you when to lean in and when to step back. Wisdom prevents overexposure and underconnection. It helps you recognize which relationships nurture growth and which drain energy. Wisdom does not isolate you. It positions you wisely. It protects your heart without hardening it. It allows love to flow without compromising truth. Inviting God's wisdom also affects how you handle conflict. Conflict is inevitable, but damage is not. Wisdom teaches you how to engage without escalating. It shows you when to address issues directly and when to allow time to soften hearts. Wisdom chooses restoration over winning. It values peace over pride. It seeks understanding before agreement. When wisdom leads, conflict becomes an opportunity for growth rather than division. Wisdom also shapes your reactions to pressure. Pressure often demands immediate response, but wisdom invites pause, and the pause clarity emerges. Wisdom teaches you that you do not owe everyone an instant answer. You owe yourself alignment. Taking time to seek God's wisdom is not avoidance, it is stewardship of your soul. When you pause to pray, you allow wisdom to reframe the moment. The urgency fades, perspective rises. Inviting God's wisdom into decisions also refines your motives. Motives matter. You can make a good decision for the wrong reason and still experience unrest. Wisdom examines the heart. It asks why, not just what. It reveals whether you are acting from fear, pride, insecurity, or faith. When motives are purified, peace follows. Wisdom aligns intention with integrity. Wisdom also protects you from comparison. Comparison distorts decision-making. It pressures you to act prematurely or imitate paths not meant for you. Wisdom anchors you in your own assignment. It reminds you that God's guidance is personal. You are not late, you are not behind, you are being led. Wisdom frees you from the need to keep pace with others. It allows you to move at God's pace. Inviting God's wisdom into conversations also enhances compassion. Wisdom does not make you harsh, it makes you understanding. It allows you to see people through God's eyes. You become less reactive to tone and more attentive to pain. Wisdom equips you to speak life where others speak criticism. It teaches you how to encourage without enabling and how to correct without humiliating. Compassion guided by wisdom builds trust. Wisdom also influences how you receive counsel. Not all advice is equal. Wisdom helps you discern which voices carry truth and which carry projection. It teaches you to listen without surrendering discernment. You honor input without abandoning conviction. Wisdom allows you to weigh counsel prayerfully rather than react emotionally. It helps you recognize when advice aligns with God's direction and when it reflects someone else's fear. Inviting God's wisdom requires consistency. Wisdom is cultivated through daily dependence. You do not invite wisdom once and expect it to govern every moment automatically. You return to God throughout the day. You ask, you listen, you adjust. Wisdom grows as relationship deepens. The more you practice seeking God's wisdom, the more natural it becomes. Decision-making shifts from stressful to steady. Wisdom also protects your energy. Some decisions drain you, not because they're difficult, but because they're misaligned. Wisdom helps you say no without guilt. It teaches you to prioritize what matters. It prevents overcommitment. Wisdom understands limits and respects them. When your energy is aligned with purpose, peace increases. Inviting God's wisdom also affects your confidence. Confidence rooted in wisdom is calm, not forceful. You do not need to explain every decision. You trust God's leading. Wisdom gives you the assurance to stand firm without defensiveness. You move with quiet certainty because your decisions are anchored in prayer, not pressure. Wisdom also brings foresight. Foresight is the ability to anticipate consequences. It allows you to avoid unnecessary pain. Wisdom sees beyond immediate gratification. It evaluates outcomes. It considers how today's choice will shape tomorrow's reality. This foresight is a gift. It protects you from repeating cycles. It opens new pathways. Inviting God's wisdom into conversations also invites peace into environments. Wisdom carries authority without aggression. When you speak with wisdom, atmospheres shift. Tension eases. Confusion clears. People feel heard. Even difficult truths land with grace. Wisdom does not manipulate. it illuminates. Wisdom also deepens trust in God. When you see how God guides your decisions, your confidence in Him grows. Each wise decision becomes testimony. Each protected moment becomes evidence of His care. Trust builds through experience. Wisdom invites you to experience God's faithfulness in practical ways. Beloved, inviting God's wisdom to guide every decision and conversation is choosing alignment over impulse, peace over pressure, and purpose over reaction. Wisdom is available. It is generous. It is patient. When you ask, God gives without reproach. When you listen, He guides. When you obey, peace follows. Let wisdom be your companion today. Let it guard your steps, govern your words, and guide your heart as you move through every moment with divine clarity and calm assurance. Beloved, hear me by the Spirit of God. Anxiety does not announce itself loudly at first. It slips quietly into the heart, disguising itself as responsibility, concern, or preparation. It convinces you that worry is wisdom and tension is maturity. But anxiety is not a sign that you care deeply. It is a signal that your soul is carrying weight it was never designed to bear. When you release anxiety and receive divine peace for today, you are not ignoring reality. You are choosing to face reality with God instead of facing it alone. Peace is not avoidance. It is authority resting on trust. Anxiety feeds on the future. It pulls tomorrow's uncertainties into today's strength and overwhelms the present moment. Divine peace anchors you in the now. It reminds you that God gives grace daily, not in bulk. You were not created to solve every problem today or to carry answers for moments you have not yet reached. Peace is the discipline of staying present. It is the spiritual decision to trust that God will meet you at every step when you arrive there. Anxiety runs ahead, peace walks with God. To release anxiety, you must first acknowledge it without shame. Anxiety does not mean your faith is weak. It means your humanity is speaking. God is not offended by your anxiety. He invites it into his presence. What you bring into the light loses its power over you. Anxiety thrives in silence and secrecy, but peace grows in surrender. When you say, Lord, this is too heavy for me, you are not failing. You are aligning. Release begins with honesty. Divine peace is not something you force yourself into. It is something you receive. Peace is a gift before it is a feeling. It comes from knowing who God is and remembering what he has already done. Peace flows when trust replaces tension. It settles the nervous system. It calms racing thoughts. It steadies the breath. It quiets the inner noise that keeps your spirit restless. Peace is God's presence making your soul feel safe again. Anxiety often comes from the illusion of control. It whispers that if you think hard enough, plan carefully enough, or worry long enough, you can prevent pain. But control is a burden disguised as responsibility. Divine peace comes when you release control and embrace trust. Trust does not mean you stop being diligent. It means you stop trying to be sovereign. God never asks you to manage outcomes. He asks you to follow him. Peace is the freedom that comes when you allow God to be God. Releasing anxiety also means releasing the need to understand everything. Understanding is comforting, but it is not required for trust. There are moments when God will not explain. He will invite you to rest. Peace grows when you accept mystery without fear. Faith does not demand answers, it leans into character. When you trust God's heart, you do not need to see his whole plan. Peace is trusting that even what you don't understand is held by love. Divine peace guards your mind. The mind is where anxiety speaks the loudest. Through what-ifs, worst-case scenarios, and imagined failures, peace interrupts these patterns. It does not argue with anxiety, it displaces it. When peace enters, anxious thoughts lose momentum. The mind becomes less crowded. Thoughts slow. Perspective returns. Peace allows you to think clearly instead of catastrophically. It creates space between thought and reaction so wisdom can speak. Anxiety also affects the body. It tightens muscles, shortens breath, and exhausts energy. Divine peace restores physical calm. It invites the body to release tension. It reminds your nervous system that you are not in danger. You are protected. Peace is embodied trust. When your body relaxes, your spirit listens more clearly. God designed peace to affect your whole being, not just your emotions. Releasing anxiety requires releasing comparison. Comparison creates anxiety by convincing you that you are behind, lacking, or failing. It forces you to measure your life against someone else's highlight reel. Divine peace recenters you in your own journey. It reminds you that God's timing is personal. You are not late. You are not overlooked. You are not behind. You are being led. Peace frees you from the pressure to keep up and allows you to walk at the pace of grace. Anxiety also comes from unresolved expectations. You expected certain outcomes, responses, or progress, and when those expectations were unmet, worry took root. Peace does not deny disappointment. It redeems it. Divine peace allows you to release expectations into God's hands without bitterness. It helps you trust that what did not happen may still be unfolding in ways you cannot yet see. Peace says, God is not finished. To receive divine peace for today, you must narrow your focus. Anxiety overwhelms by expanding the field, everything at once, all at the same time. Peace simplifies. It asks, what is required of me right now? Peace teaches you to handle one moment at a time with faith. Today has its own grace. You do not need tomorrow's strength today. When you focus on today, anxiety weakens because it no longer has future territory to occupy. Peace also grows through gratitude. Gratitude shifts attention from lack to provision. When you thank God for what He has already done, your heart softens. Anxiety cannot coexist with gratitude because gratitude reminds you that God has been faithful before. Peace is often restored by remembrance. You remember past deliverance, past provision, past protection. Memory fuels trust, and trust births peace. Releasing anxiety also means setting emotional boundaries. Not every concern deserves access to your heart. Not every problem is yours to solve. Divine peace teaches discernment. It shows you what to carry and what to release. When you stop carrying burdens assigned to God or to other people, your soul lightens. Peace is stewardship of emotional energy. It protects your heart from overload. Anxiety sometimes masks fear of failure. You fear making the wrong choice, disappointing others, or falling short. Peace reframes failure. It reminds you that God is not fragile. He can redirect you. He can redeem mistakes. He can teach you through experience. When you trust God's ability to guide and correct, fear loses its grip. Peace grows when you realize that perfection is not required. Obedience is. Divine peace also heals inner narratives. Anxiety often speaks in absolutes, always, never, everything, nothing. Peace brings balance. It restores truth. It softens extremes. Peace reminds you that one moment does not define your whole story. One setback does not cancel your calling. One delay does not deny your destiny. Peace restores perspective so you can see clearly again. Releasing anxiety is an ongoing practice, not a one-time decision. Anxiety may attempt to return throughout the day. Each time it does, you return to peace. You breathe, you pray, you release again. Peace is maintained through awareness. When you notice tension rising, you pause. You acknowledge God's presence. You remind your soul that it is safe. Over time, peace becomes your default posture. Divine peace does not mean the absence of responsibility. It means the presence of trust while fulfilling responsibility. You still work, you still decide, you still engage, but you do so without the weight of fear. Peace allows you to be productive without being pressured, focused without being frantic, diligent without being drained. Peace is sustainable strength. Anxiety isolates, peace reconnects. When you are anxious, you retreat inwardly. When peace enters, you reconnect with God and with others. You become more present in conversations, more attentive, more compassionate. Peace expands your capacity to love without being overwhelmed. It opens your heart without leaving it unguarded. Divine peace also strengthens faith. Faith does not always feel bold. Sometimes it feels calm. Peace is faith resting. It is the assurance that God is trustworthy, even when circumstances are uncertain. When peace settles in your spirit, faith becomes less about striving and more about abiding. You trust without forcing. You believe without proving. Releasing anxiety allows joy to resurface. Anxiety crowds out joy by keeping your attention fixed on threat. Peace creates space for joy to breathe again. Joy may not appear loudly at first. It often returns quietly, as lightness, as laughter, as relief. Peace restores your ability to enjoy the present without fear of what might come next. Beloved, releasing anxiety and receiving divine peace for today is an act of faith. It is choosing to trust God with what feels heavy. It is allowing Him to carry what overwhelms you. Peace is not something you achieve. It is something you accept. God is offering peace for today, not because everything is resolved, but because He is present. Let peace settle your heart. Let it guard your thoughts. Let it steady your spirit. Today is held by God, and that is enough. Beloved, hear me by the Spirit of God. Pressure is subtle. It disguises itself as urgency, responsibility, and expectation, quietly convincing you that if you do not hurry, force, or overextend yourself, something will fall apart. Pressure pushes you to perform, to prove, to rush ahead of grace. But God never leads through pressure. He leads through purpose. When you align your actions with God's purpose instead of pressure, you step out of survival mode and into divine flow. Purpose gives direction. Pressure demands reaction. One drains you, the other sustains you. Pressure speaks loudly and insists on immediate response. It says everything must be done now perfectly and without pause. Purpose speaks calmly. It gives instruction one step at a time. Pressure creates anxiety because it disconnects you from peace. Purpose creates clarity because it anchors you in God's intention. When you begin your day aligned with purpose, you are no longer driven by deadlines alone. You are guided by divine order. Stop asking, what do I have to do? And begin asking, what has God assigned? That shift changes everything. Aligning your actions with purpose begins with discernment. Not everything urgent is important. Not everything important is yours. Pressure convinces you to carry responsibilities that were never assigned to you. Purpose filters your commitments. It teaches you to recognize what deserves your energy and what must be released. Discernment is a gift of alignment. It allows you to say no without guilt and yes without fear. When your actions are aligned with purpose, peace confirms your direction. Pressure often arises from fear of disappointing others. You feel compelled to meet expectations even when they conflict with God's direction. Purpose frees you from people-pleasing. It anchors your identity in obedience, not approval. When you align with purpose, you understand that obedience to God will sometimes disappoint people, but disobedience to God will always cost peace. Purpose gives you the courage to honor God's voice above every other voice. Aligning your actions with purpose also requires patience. Purpose unfolds progressively. It does not demand instant results. Pressure rushes process. Purpose honors it. Some things need time to develop. Some assignments require preparation before manifestation. Purpose teaches you to trust God's timing. You stop forcing outcomes and start cultivating faithfulness. Faithfulness may feel slow, but it produces lasting fruit. Pressure feeds on comparison. It tells you that others are ahead, moving faster, achieving more. Purpose silences comparison by grounding you in your own calling. God did not ask you to imitate someone else's path. He asked you to walk yours. When you align with purpose, you stop measuring progress by speed and start measuring it by obedience. You recognize that alignment matters more than acceleration. Aligning your actions with purpose also reshapes how you work. Work under pressure feels heavy and exhausting. Work aligned with purpose feels focused and meaningful. You still exert effort, but it is not draining because it is directed. Purpose gives your work context. It reminds you why you do what you do. When work is purposeful, it becomes an expression of obedience rather than a source of stress. Pressure often produces scattered energy. You try to do many things at once, fearing that if you slow down, you will fall behind. Purpose brings focus. It teaches you to do fewer things well. Focus is not limitation, it is stewardship. When your actions are aligned with purpose, your energy is preserved. You become more effective because you are not divided. Purpose concentrates your effort where it matters most. Aligning your actions with purpose also guards your emotional health. Pressure fuels frustration, resentment, and burnout. Purpose nurtures peace, fulfillment, and endurance. When you act from purpose, you are less reactive. You respond thoughtfully. You remain calm under demand because you know why you are doing what you are doing. Purpose sustains motivation even when results are delayed. Pressure often exaggerates consequences. It convinces you that one mistake will ruin everything. Purpose restores perspective. It reminds you that God is sovereign and able to redeem missteps. When your actions are aligned with purpose, you are not paralyzed by fear of failure. You trust God's guidance. You move forward with humility and confidence, knowing that obedience matters more than perfection. Aligning with purpose also influences how you handle opportunities. Pressure pushes you to say yes quickly, fearing you might miss out. Purpose invites you to pray before committing. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Some opportunities distract from purpose. Discernment protects you from overextension. When you align your actions with purpose, you choose opportunities that align with God's direction, not just with your ambition. Purpose also brings clarity in decision-making. Decisions made under pressure are often reactive and short-sighted. Decisions made with purpose are intentional and considered. Purpose invites you to pause and ask, does this align with God's direction for my life? This question filters options. It brings peace. It removes confusion. Purpose-driven decisions carry confidence because they are rooted in prayer, not urgency. Aligning your actions with purpose requires trust. Trust that God's plan is sufficient. Trust that you do not need to manipulate outcomes. Trust that obedience will lead to fulfillment. Pressure thrives on distrust. It assumes that if you don't push, nothing will happen. Purpose rests in trust. It believes that God is working even when you are not forcing. Trust releases your soul from striving. Pressure often comes from internal narratives, voices that say you must do more, be more, prove more. Purpose silences those voices by reminding you that your worth is not earned through performance. You are valuable because you are loved. Purpose shifts motivation from proving to serving. When your actions flow from identity rather than insecurity, peace follows. Aligning your actions with purpose also affects how you handle rest. Pressure treats rest as weakness. Purpose honors rest as wisdom. God designed rest as part of purpose, not a break from it. Rest restores clarity. It renews strength. It sharpens discernment. When you align with purpose, you rest without guilt because you trust God's design. Rest becomes a strategy, not a reward. Pressure creates urgency without direction. Purpose creates direction without urgency. This balance allows you to move steadily without rushing. You learn to pace yourself. You learn to listen. You learn to wait when necessary. Purpose teaches you that delay is not failure. It is preparation. Waiting becomes active trust, not passive resignation. Aligning with purpose also transforms how you respond to resistance. Resistance does not automatically mean you are on the wrong path. Sometimes it confirms that you are. Pressure interprets resistance as a threat. Purpose interprets resistance through discernment. It asks whether resistance is opposition to push through or redirection to pause. Purpose gives you the wisdom to know the difference. Pressure often disconnects you from joy. Joy fades when life feels like a constant demand. Purpose restores joy because it reconnects you with meaning. When you know why you are doing something, joy returns. Even challenging tasks carry fulfillment. When they align with purpose, joy becomes strength. It sustains you through difficulty. Aligning your actions with purpose also deepens your